The Fueled by Death guest.
Jordan, it's so great to talk with you, man.
It's so great to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you. Before we get started, I just gotta say I'm stoked that you like the coffee, man.
It's my favorite. I mean, seriously, it's and each time I hand it out to other people, like I got the batch and I showed it to my in-laws and they drank it and they're like, this coffee's unlike any other, and so they're all over it too. So thank you.
Awesome. So I want to start off. You are a guy that we love to talk to because you wear 1,000 hats. You're not just yeah.
I only see one hat, Jeff. I
don't. But no, I mean, like, you're not just a peg in a hole there. You do a lot of different things, and I want to delve into all of it. Where I want to start is kind of where you started. I know you started out as a musician. Is that correct?
Yeah, I actually grew up in East Tennessee, and I grew up playing classical music. I grew up playing violin. But then by the time I was 8, my dad and some other people in town had kind of, pointed out to me that if you're going to make it in East Tennessee, you got to learn some bluegrass, you got to learn some country.
It's the truth.
And, at least as an 8-year-old with a rat tail. And so I got a fiddle teacher and I started learning from him. He's just a wonderful fiddler. And by the way, I almost said violinist, but a lot of people ask. They're the same instrument in my mind.
I get it all the time. I'm also a violinist.
That's right.
The first thing people ask me is, like, well, can you play the fiddle? And I say, surprisingly, yes, because it's the same damn thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think once you get up into if you're paying like $50,000 for a violin, you're probably going to have more classical, like rich violin tones than you would from a fiddle. But you could buy a $50,000 fiddle too,
Oh, yeah.
But my definition is if you're playing jazz or classical, it's a violin. Anything else is a fiddle. That's just me personally.
I super agree with that. I mean,
what about rock and roll?
I think
that's a fiddle.
I think it's a fiddle. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I played in rock bands for a very long time as a violinist, as a fiddler.
Yeah.
And
I'm calling you a fiddler for
that's
now
fine. I would tell people that too because I grew up the same kind of thing, like playing classical.
Yeah.
My father actually told me to get into country when I was younger. He's like, that's where the money is, and I was like, well, I don't really know if I like it though.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up making money playing country and bluegrass. So Pigeon Forge, Tennessee is like the Las Vegas of the Smoky Mountains, right? It's all these different theaters all the way up and down the strip. There's some amazing talent there. And my first professional gig was I was playing at Dollywood, which is Dolly Parton's theme park.
Yeah.
And I did that when I was 8, and then and my teacher helped me get that gig. And then he was doing another gig at Dixie Stampede. And he was the full-time fiddler there, but then he was going on the road a lot. So I came in as his sub. So I was performing a few times a week sometimes as this like 10-year-old, Wow. And I was the kid that I would I was 10 and every once in a while I'd look in my wallet and I'd find like 3 checks that I forgot to deposit. And I was like, oh, I guess I should deposit these. And then the adults around me are going, oh, I wish I had that problem.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. So starting from a young age then, like performing in front of crowds, were you a natural to that? Did you just take to that? Or was that another skill you had to learn?
I think it came somewhat naturally. I think I've always been a ham. I think I've always enjoyed the spotlight. This is something that I don't know if your other guests have tapped into this or not, but it's a very common thing for an entertainer to be equally extroverted and introverted.
Yes.
Because you kind of have to have that introverted quality in order to tap into the emotion of what you want to create, to be able to feel what it is that is important to you, to give it a voice, But then you're going to have a hard time sharing that with people if you can't tap into that extroverted nature too, of finding the way that you can express it to others and to communicate, So I remember having my times of, sometimes I would really ham it up for the audience, and sometimes I would just want to stand there on stage and play my music and like keep my eyes down. And people kept turning to me and saying, hey, it's cool that you're enjoying the music and everything, but you can't close your eyes. You can't you can't block everybody else out, even though you're feeling it. This isn't an Eric Clapton concert where they're there to, see you feeling the solo. They're there to be entertained, and it's a different muscle, right?
Yeah.
And I've had that affect me in different ways throughout my life. I still, even as an actor, as just a person, I find myself like sometimes the comfort of slipping into entertainer is more comfortable. It's easier for me than it is to just truthfully experience a moment and to to be present, which is what a lot of acting is. A lot of acting calls for that, and I have I struggle with that sometimes, and I think it's because of as a 10-year-old I was in front of 1,100 seat audiences, and I was meant to entertain them while they were about to go into a show and have a good time.
Wow.
Do you still have to battle with introverted tendencies in order to perform top notch?
It You know what? I'll say at this point, I don't think it really affects me once I get the character, once I know what I'm doing, but it will affect me sometimes. Like if I'm on set for something, if I'm on a set where I really don't know the people, I'm a terrible like self promoter. Once I get there, I'll just go like sit in my chair, or I'll read my Kindle, or I'll go ad nauseum to the snack table and just eat as much as possible. But then, the more comfortable I get, the more I branch out, and then I do really get to know people. But then as far as like auditions and stuff, no, I think I enjoy putting on a different skin sometimes, and even though it is that introverted nature, sometimes it just gives you a different filter to explore, and that maybe that allows you to be more extroverted or whatever. The one thing I have learned is from those times when I do go away to set, when I do a convention or something, which I know you guys are big in the with Death Wish, hitting those conventions, and we love you for it. But if I do like a Walker Stalker and I'm gone for 2 days, my family knows that when I get back on Monday, that I need another day to myself before I'm really going to be the dad that they're expecting.
Oh yeah, you get socially pooped in those situations pretty quickly. It's conversationally fatigued.
Yeah.
We definitely deal with that. Definitely go into the conventions, and I mean, you're talking to thousands of people within a day, and
Right.
I don't know if our DNA is ever meant to deal with that. So yeah, I feel the same thing sometimes. Yeah, a day or two or three. Just leave me alone in the room. I'll play video games. I'll come back. I'll be normal.
Yeah, we need that downtime to recharge our creativity for sure.
Yeah.
And kind of speaking on that, I wanted to talk, because you brought it up with the convention cycle. That's a whole new aspect for an actor, even a musician, now, where it's a much more accessible thing. I mean, I remember being a kid and loving the things I love, the comic books, the movies, the televisions, or whatever, shows, and that was the be all end all. Maybe I could get like a Fangoria magazine or something, and like read an article about it. But being able to go to these different things, and we've done some of the Walker Stalkers. Shout out to our mutual friend Dave Solo, actually, for getting us into that that realm. But as an actor, do you enjoy doing that kind of thing and being able to interact with the fans on that level? I
do while I'm there.
Yeah.
and while I'm gone, I do Jones for it as well, because it's a cool situation. First of all, as an actor, like it's cool just to have any sort of I don't know, it's not even necessarily notoriety, but just to like it's probably completely stroking the ego, I suppose, but it's just cool to be recognized for something that you've done, and I think anybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
And if it means that I need to go stand at a table and shake people's hands and sign pictures in order to get that notoriety, then I enjoy that. I get to meet people. I've met so many people that I've only interacted with online, and it's very different meeting someone and like sending a couple tweets back and forth versus actually like getting to put a face to that name and like coming around the table and give them a big hug and be excited about this interaction,
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it while it's going on, and then I just have to suffer a little bit later when I feel absolutely pooped.
Totally.
But these conventions are going all around the world. They're meeting really cool people. The fans are always so loyal and usually have like really cool gifts to offer or great stories. Or I know my character on the show on Walking Dead, Eric, Ross and I, who plays Aaron, we've had many people come up to us sharing their personal coming out stories or their personal why they were so proud and honored to have just the LGBTQ presence on such a world internationally recognized show. And, Ross and I have always been allies and very open and supporting this and wanting to show great strength behind these characters. And hopefully, from hearing these stories, I've had times where I've just gotten an email from someone and I've just had to stop everything I'm doing and just sit down and read it, because they're truly opening up. And that happens at these conventions. And that's a cool thing to be able to just stand there and like, I've had times when I've just stood and cried with someone for a couple minutes, and then we've gotten hugs, and then we've gone off on our ways, But those little interactions, those little connections, you can't get those without actually being in the same space with someone and having that mutual experience that you both care deeply about and you both want to share with each other.
Totally.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Speaking, I guess, on The Walking Dead, then. You, as an actor, have been very lucky playing roles on television and on the big screen. But something like The Walking Dead is a thing all of its own. When you were cast as Eric, did you know about it? Were you a fan of the series? Did you know what you were getting into when you went to audition?
I knew that it was the most popular show on cable. I knew all that. I knew that it's massively popular and that people love it, and the people that do watch it are very loyal to it. I knew all of that. I knew, but I hadn't really watched it. The one time that I had sat first, I'm a terrible like actor. Like I'm bad at doing like the self-promotion stuff while I'm on set, and I also don't watch much TV, so I really hadn't watched the show before this. I'd gotten maybe 4 or 5 episodes in. But at the time we had a newborn, my daughter was fresh, and it felt weird sometimes, like putting it on and her being just within earshot of it,
Yeah,
So I said, I put a little pin in it. I said, I'm going to come back to this because I did like it.
Mhm.
It just wasn't matching up with my lifestyle at the time.
Right.
But when I got cast, I mean, I knew what that meant, and I knew that was a pretty cool thing. It was kind of an experience that I went through on like a local level of just trying to put my life in order to be able to even accept the role that I'd been offered. There was a big roller coaster that happened for about 24 hours. But once that worked out, once everything had been cleared and I was able to breathe, and it was a whirlwind, and the show's amazing.
Did you know about the character going into it? Because I'm trying to remember the timeline as a comics fan. Both your character and Ross's, and we love Ross, by the way, too. Both of your characters in the comics are very iconic and very awesome, but unfortunately, just like in the show, Eric meets his demise.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's happened. I mean,
Right.
Was that already out there when you had gotten the role? Did you know about that already, walking onto the role?
Yeah, that had already the issue had already been published of Walking Dead. So I knew that coming into it. I think I actually learned it once I got on set, but
Somebody
still,
tell
I mean,
you, or did
like,
you
you're not long for this show,
hey,
buddy.
congratulations, you got a job. You're gonna die.
Right. It was okay. So one of my first meetings with Yulin Hufke, who was the wardrobe designer or costume designer who's left for the past couple seasons. My first meeting was with her, and we had this whole wardrobe fitting, and she was trying all these different costumes and everything, and we tried some things on, and I think I started because she knew more about the character than I did at that point. She said, "Yeah, you're in Alexandria. You and your partner are the recruits for the community. You go out. This is, I think you're very practical, very thrifty." I'd done some research. I had thought, I'd set like my backstory for myself.
Right,
and I was
right,
like,
of
oh,
course.
I grew up in the mountains, and I'm good with my hands, and I'd rather have a knife than a gun because I'm, I can fashion stuff, whatever. I'd like to come up with all that stuff,
Yeah,
and we
of course,
talked about
of
that.
course.
And we talked about, I think it might have been my idea that I would have a backpack, and that I don't want to misspeak, but the idea being that like I always had different things in my pockets. Like I never just had like one tool that was going to protect me. I always had like cargo shorts and different things I could reach into in order to whatever I needed to have.
Eric, the Swiss Army knife.
The Batman of
Yeah.
the Walking Dead world.
The Batman.
Exactly.
of the
A
Walking
Boy
Dead.
Scout.
Utility belt.
Yeah. But it came up in that conversation, that my character, she was the one who told me that my character had died in the comics, but that Aaron was still around. And then she went on to tell me that some people, but she said that's not for a while. We're not gonna. I think our first time in Alexandria, the assistant director called everybody around and said, "Okay, everybody, we don't want you walking on the grass. We don't want you, try to maintain this place as much as possible because we're going to be here for at least the next year and a half." And flash forward, now they've been in Alexandria for 4 years. So plans have changed. That at one point they were thinking they might only be there for a year and a half. So they have all these ideas, but everything can be stretched out. It's all it's all just coming down to figuring out what story they want to tell and how they're best going to tell it.
Right. So. As an actor, what is it like walking onto a set like that where it's almost a twofold thing? You've got a revolving door of actors and actresses because, spoiler, people die in The Walking Dead.
What?
But also you have a core group of actors who have been, some of them, since the first episode, so like they have this tight-knit thing. Is that what is that like as an actor in your shoes to walk into a set like that?
It was really funny because I was trying to get caught up on watching the episodes, but I only had a couple days in order to do it.
Right.
So by the time I'm on set filming the end of season 5, which is in Alexandria, I was still only watching season 2, which is on the farm.
Uh-huh.
And so like I had I knew who Rick and Carl were. Who else? I know who Daryl was.
Yeah.
But all of these other, I hadn't even like truly gotten to know Maggie.
Oh, right. Yeah, because end of
she
that
was
season.
into, yeah. I knew who Glenn was, but I was like, "Where's Herschel? I'm on set and I don't see Herschel around." And people are just like, "Well," like there's just all these moments, and that is a bit of a surreal experience. It's also, there aren't many shows that show up that are out right now that have such a heavily rotating cast where. Some people, so on the show we have something called a call sheet, right? And it goes through. So like, Rick is number 1. Andy is number 1. He's the number 1, and then I forget number 2 is. Somebody's gonna be mad at me for forgetting who number 2 is, but I'm sure many of the fans know who number 2 is. And they'll tell me. But then Carl was like number 7 and stuff like that. So like it depends on when you appear on the show, right?
Right.
And that in some ways that has to do with your seniority. Usually in most shows where characters don't die off, like Friends, the first 6 call numbers are going to be those 6 people the entire time,
That episode where Joey died.
I missed that one.
But with The Walking Dead, you've got some series regulars. I mean, King Ezekiel, his number was up in the 200s, and yet he's one of the main people on the show now, And so that's just an interesting phenomenon that you're right, it is just a constantly rotating door that people are coming in, coming out, and some people have a longer storyline than others. But I will say that on set, Andrew Lincoln especially, and all of the other actors and crew that have been there the entire time, really do just welcome everybody equally. I got there and I felt like I was going to be on the show for the next 10 years and they do that to people who they're just meeting, who are just going to be there for one day. It is. They realize that there are no small pieces of this story, that it's so big and so vast and epic that that every story is important. And I've had the thought many times, and I think probably other fans have too, that just watching it, like at this point, knowing what we know about Rick and his crew and and who we've been watching since the beginning, and like meeting other troops and assigning them as good or bad people, like I think it'd be very interesting to think about that if this series had started with the camera on Negan as the very first shot instead of Rick, there would be enough evidence to support the idea that once Negan meets Rick, that he's the bad guy, and that Negan's just trying to protect his people against Rick. I mean, like they're and like the Terminus, if we had seen the reasons why they had decided to turn cannibal, then we might have agreed with them. We might have sympathized with them. We might not have seen them as monsters, And I think that's kind of interesting right now, seeing Rick going through everything that he's going to and seeing the rest of his crew. he's writing that line constantly of, are you the good guy? Are you the bad guy? We can't quite tell anymore. And I think that allows for, that's why every character that comes through has great importance, because we're just seeing windows into different people's lives. And if it's just for a short amount of time or longer, then everybody's equally important.
Well, I think that's what's so appealing about the show and makes it so realistic is that that's what real life is like. You meet a person that you think is a bad person, but if you saw what they went through and the upbringing that they had, and maybe you would like be able to sympathize and see what they had gone through and be like, actually, it's just a person, just like anybody else, and it's just a circumstantial of how they turned out and how they're interacting with other people, and that's probably the coolest part about The Walking Dead is that it isn't black and white, and life is not black and white. That's what makes it so awesome.
Yeah. And I think one of the coolest parts was you being on it. I thoroughly enjoyed your portrayal of that character. I think you and Ross together just like embodied those characters like perfect. And I truly miss you on the show.
Thank you.
Although it had to happen, obviously, that is an incredible story.
To die.
Well, it's an incredible story being in the comics.
It's a great story.
Yeah, they had to do it. Do it like that. And to kind of wrap up talking about the Dead, I just wanted to ask. We talked about kind of coming on set to begin with. What was it like that final day? Like was it the same kind of thing? Was it a whole different kind of experience? What was that like?
No, it was equally great. It was. I still have not had a moment of remorse or anything about any of this, because I felt like that final episode, that final scene was just so beautiful and so perfect and poetic and had such strength and heart and love to it that not other characters get. Sometimes it's just a shot to the head and you're done.
Right, yeah.
Which is how it is in the comic.
Yeah.
But with Eric and Aaron, they got that great send-off. And I felt that on set. Everyone was super warm. Everyone was very respectful of Ross and I, as they knew that Ross stayed in that state of mind all day, like 14 hours. I mean, that was rough for him. I finished my scene. It was the first one up, and we were done filming in maybe 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah.
But then he had to stay in that state of mind for the rest of the day. And so I got to sit around and enjoy the rest of my day and getting to talk to people. And everyone was very supportive of giving us space, giving us silence when we needed it, when we were about to get into our scene, just giving us all of that. And then at the end of the day, when I was wrapped, then everybody gathered around and I got to say thank you to everyone and got a little speech. And I still have it, my final script. I passed it around and I got signatures. It was like a yearbook. So it was great. It was I felt very, it was very heartfelt, and I felt like I had a great send off, not only story wise, but also from everyone that works on the show.
That's awesome. And I kind of want to now segue into your acting career as a whole, because we started out by talking about how you started as a musician, and I think that's amazing. And then that kind of moved into acting. And like I said, you've done television, you've done movies, you've shared the screen with Sir Anthony Hopkins. When did this start for you? When did that become something that you were like, okay, I'm going to pursue this now?
Yeah. So I have a very distinct memory. So I went to a performing arts camp called Stage Door Manor. It's in the Catskills. And actually there are lots of people on stage and screen that who went there. And I went there for 4 seasons, but each summer, it's a 9-week session and you put up a show every 3 weeks. It's super fast, super professional, and it's only for people up to ages 8 to 18. So it's for kids.
Right.
And my last show that I was doing at Stage Door Manor was Cabaret, which is a musical, and I don't do many musicals, none anymore, but I was playing the MC. And it's this for anyone who's familiar with Cabaret, I mean, it's in Nazi Germany during the time of the Holocaust, and it's got some heavy stuff underneath this very grungy body, nightclub aesthetic, right? And it was our final performance, and it was just one of those performances that felt electric. It felt alive. It felt like we were doing something different. It felt like we were reaching people on a different level. And I remember looking at the director and seeing the look in his eyes during curtain call while we're all taking our bows, and just feeling that feeling with the audience, and knowing that we had just done something that everyone was going to remember this experience just now. And I remember walking away from the theater saying, this is what I'm going to do. I had been a musician go up until 18. At times, though, I'd had the opportunities to grow jaded just a little bit. I had been working in a community with some, I don't know. I mean, I think it's fair to say I've been working in a community with some older guys who are now working with a 10-year-old, and like, as cool as that may seem to me, some of them might say, man, I really wish I were in Nashville doing my session gig right now that I had been hoping for, rather than playing with this guy in a theme park,
Right.
Fine. That's where their path led them. And it kind of, I think that kind of trickled onto me a little bit in some ways. And so by that point, I was ready to put music on the back burner and go to college. And so I went to NYU, New York University, and I studied theater at Tisch. And that was kind of the beginning to everything that I'm doing now. So in college, I auditioned for Blue Man Group and loved it. And they said, everything's great and we want you to go into training, but we don't want to pull you out of school in order to go into training, because you can be cut from training at any point, and we don't want you to drop out and then also get cut from training and then your life just be,
Yeah.
So, that is extremely awesome, and not many people will do that for you,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
just to have a company that's like, hey, we believe in you, we're gonna put some faith in you, and we're also gonna give you some time to do what you need to do, so that when you're ready you can come back and we'll start over, and so that was already a great sign. And then I graduated early. I worked hard and graduated a semester early, and within about 3 weeks of graduating I was in training for Blue Man, and I've been doing that ever since.
That's so. I gotta ask, when you become a blue man, are you a blue man for life?
Yes and no. People leave for different reasons. There's no I'll say we're not on a yearly contract, but just like any other job, each person has or each entity, I should say, the performer and the company has the opportunity to say thank you so much, but we're gonna move on at any point, really. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, there are people who have been doing Blue Man that this is their lifeblood, this is their passion, this is what they've been doing, and it's very cool. And we've had lots of opportunities for guys to say, hey, I want to try something else right now, and the company says great, and so they move out to LA, or they move to Toronto, or they move to just to do open a vineyard, whatever. And then over time they might say, hey, you know what, I really like to come back and be a Blue Man again, and the company says, okay, great. And it is that kind of fluidity to it, that it is a small enough group of artists and like-minded community that we can have those conversations. And yes, I mean, I guess you are kind of a Blue Man for life.
It's kind of almost like a fraternity.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
A few simple but strange questions that I got to know about being a Blue Man.
Okay.
How long does it take to put the makeup on? Is it extremely hot? And is it hard to wash off afterwards?
Okay. So the makeup process it's truly a transformation, right? I mean, like, we allow about an hour. The technical elements of it don't take that long, but we allow an hour because we like to have time to sit and talk. And the three of us, the three Blue Men, sitting in a room and putting on some music and actually like feeling each other out throughout the day, or talking about ideas that we've had outside the show, or talking about what's going on in our lives or whatever. And that connection, in combination with the ritual that each of us goes through of putting on the makeup and putting on the outfit and getting ready, I'd say that really allows you to be primed for the show. Because I have lots of times when as a person, I will be having a crap day, and we all have that. And I have crap days more often than I'd like to admit. But there's something about the show that if I can show up and if I can truly just let myself go, I'm saying then the character will just magnify that and just take take all of those bad thoughts and just eradicate them. And so by the end of it, I usually walk away feeling better than I did coming in, you know? And that's a really cool job to have. That's a really cool opportunity. And to know that during that, I'm actually getting to hopefully share that same magic with the audience, who they might have been having crap days too. I don't know. But to be able to show up and to just help them forget about whatever it is that's been on their mind, and to give them an hour and 40 minutes of just laughter and good music and feeling like a kid again, then I love that. So then after the show, each of us has a ritual of getting out of makeup, but I can be, I can probably be done in about 20 minutes. That's the easier part. Yeah. It's not super tough to take off. We've all got our ways of doing it, and we found, you know, how to cleanse ourselves after the performance.
There's got to be a moment though, you just scratch a part of yourself and you're like, oh, I missed a spot.
Oh yeah. Oh, just getting ready for this call, I knew it was going to be video, so I just went and looked in the mirror, and I had blue eye boogers. I mean, it's like, I probably still have them. Let me see. But yeah, I don't get blackheads. I get blue heads. And
That's so funny.
People, whenever I go to the esthetician, which is very rare, they usually love just like going through and looking at my pores, and like they actually giggle while they're like popping the blackheads, because they're like, oh, it's blue.
Oh, jeez.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, you know, for anybody out there who's having a crappy day, the probably easiest way to turn it around is to go and watch a Blue Man show. Like you guys,
with a cup of Death Wish coffee.
Oh, I love it. There it is. The new commercial. There it is, right there. But no, for real. I mean, that's just some infectious.
I agree, man.
It's an infectious good time. It really is.
I agree. And it's hard to explain, but yeah, you walk away just feeling better. It's so
yeah, of course. You know, through it all, with your musical career, I know you produce music too, through a studio, and you have a couple incredible albums out. By the way, I love Anthem.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
And all of the acting that you've done, I mean, like I said, you've gotten to do some iconic stuff acting-wise already, and some just fun stuff, you know, just being able to come on screen and just, you know, just some fun stuff. Through it all, what fuels you to keep going out there and doing it, to keep being creative, to keep being Jordan?
Yeah. So I am a firm believer that every actor and artist is an entrepreneur. And that's, you know, it's going back to your conversation about like wearing many hats, you know, like an entrepreneur it's got kind of a negative stigma, I think, especially in the artist world. Like, I think some people look at entrepreneur and think, oh, they're just trying to, you know, fast road their way to cash or something, you know, but yeah. I see it in the way that, you know, as an entrepreneur, you know yourself better than anybody else. And it's your job to be able to tap into everything that you're interested in, and to be able to convey that to others so that they want to latch onto your brand, right? And my brand is that I love to act, I love to play music, I love to be kind of kooky, and I love to like kind of push the boundaries every once in a while, you know? And as an entrepreneur, that's what's led me to all of these different things. I oftentimes think of myself as a bit of a shark. I mentioned before that I don't really watch a lot of TV. It's because if I ever stop swimming, I drown. You know, I just like that. I have to keep moving. And so that leads me to so I'm a full-time dad with 2 kids. I'm a full-time Blue Man, and I work at night. I'm constantly auditioning for film and TV things that take me all over the country, hopefully. I run an acting studio out of Orlando. I have a studio in my house, and I also have a studio further downtown, where I'm meeting with actors every day and putting their auditions on tape to give them the opportunity to send it off to casting directors and everybody else. So that, because that's how I've booked all of my stuff. It's all on tape. It's very rare that you go into the room anymore to have an audition. Right. Most of the time now you just record it. And everything that I've booked that we've been talking about, I've booked in my studio here. This is my space, right? And I've done it without leaving the studio. Wow. So I do that, and then I also take freelance work. I play with multiple bands in town, and I think that's just part of that creative spirit, right? And tapping into that and knowing that eventually, as the creative, you're going to get burnt out on one little thing here or there. I'm sure putting together a podcast weekly has its real challenges sometimes, even though it also is extremely fulfilling once you're done with the project, you know?
Yes, totally.
And it's the same sort of thing that if you go fully into any one venture for too long, at a certain point it's going to start to become stale because it doesn't have the little tributaries leading off of it, you know? So that's basically how I've just kind of found myself, is I keep saying yes to myself, and I allow myself, if I have a big idea, if I have an opportunity that comes along, no matter how silly it is, I try just to say, great, I'm going to do that for a little while, you know? And that's what leads to putting together a full-length album last year. That's what leads to I mean, I guess just some people look at me and say, I don't know when you have time to sleep. I don't know how you have so much energy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. How do you keep your energy levels up?
Death Wish coffee.
No.
Play me off, Johnny.
I wasn't setting you up for that.
No, it's true. I mean, I think I get fueled. I also get fueled by knowing that I have lots of things that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The times when I sit there sluggish is when I have a list of things that like I need to do, or that I somewhat want to do, but I'm not really that passionate about them. And then I don't do anything. Then I just say, I'm not really feeling it. I'm going to sit down and play a game for a few minutes, you know? And then later I feel like I didn't get anything done. And so then I like start to spiral a little bit, thinking like I didn't do anything today, whereas actually I did quite a bit. But that's not the point. Is, you know, finding the way to, I usually keep a running list of things that I find interesting, and that allows you to just open up the list. And on any given day, you can like scroll through. I'm scrolling. This is me scrolling on my phone.
Yeah.
I can scroll through stuff and say, "Oh, that thing! That I'm excited about that right now. I'm going to go do that." You know, I wasn't excited about it yesterday, but I'm excited about it right now, so I'm going to go do it. And that for me, that's so much more effective than like having a, you know, the honey-do list.
Yeah.
Of, you know, somebody gives you a list of these 3 things that you have to get done before the end of the day.
Yep.
To me, that's the death of productivity. That's the death of creativity. I have a really hard time doing that. But if you hand me a list of 10 things that need to happen within the next week, I'll probably get most of them done in the first 3 days, because I'm allowed the flexibility to say, oh, this would be so cool to do right now. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. Okay, good. I got my day planned out. Here I go.
That's
and
exactly
then the next day I
how I
down.
work. That's exactly how I do things. I list things out. I'm like, okay, I need to get this done at least this week. And I'll list, I mean, I even, one of my lists here, I list it out like this, and then I just cross it off as I go along. But it's not what I have to do today. It's what I have to get done this week.
Right.
And I kind of let the flow of the day kind of guide me as far as what gets done.
And it's probably constantly growing, right? And it's constantly, and I'm sure people look at you and go like, your list is so long. How do you keep up? And you're like, what are you talking about? I'm doing great. I just knocked 3 things off and I added 4 more. This is a great list.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of lists, I actually have to excuse myself. I got to catch a plane to Seattle.
All right.
Yeah. So
we'll just finish up. Good luck.
Okay.
Good
Thanks.
flight.
All right. Good to meet you, Jordan.
Nice to meet you too.
I hope to run into you in the future at a Walker Stalker soon. I'm sure we will. And it's been great talking to you, man.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah. Cheers,
Jordan. I just want to end by talking a little bit about, and I know as an actor and a musician, a lot of times things are secret that you can't talk about that are upcoming. Right. But is there anything upcoming that you can that you're being a part of that you can talk about?
At this point, no, actually. But I mean, that's the freelance actor lifestyle,
yes,
right? That's the, you know, at least with the film and TV world, like I found that it rains and there's famine. Like it's either pouring or you're starving. Isn't that the phrase?
That is the phrase.
No, feast or famine. You know,
feast or famine,
it's entirely true. You know, there are times when you will book massive, 3 great projects in a row and have a hard time keeping up with yourself. And then there'll be times where you just have to sit and wait, you know, but in that time, I'm finding all of these other outlets in order to expand my creativity. I'm writing more. I'm working with actors more. I'm having more time with my kids, frankly, you know, and stuff like that. Like those are that's the way to keep that muscle primed, to keep your brain thinking about how to remain creative, even when the stuff isn't landing in your lap per se, you know?
Yeah.
But as of right now, the easiest way to find me is to come see Blue Man Group at Universal Studios in Orlando.
Yes.
And I'm there several nights a week. And if you reach out to me on social media, then I know my schedule a couple weeks in advance, and I can let you know when I'll be there.
And for our listeners and watchers, your social media is that's the best way to find you, is your social media?
Yeah, actually, probably the best way to find me is just go to my website, which is my name.
Perfect.
JordanWoods-Robinson.com, JORDAN,
Yep.
Woods-Robinson.
I'll put that right in the show.
Yeah, perfect. And then from there, you can find all of my social media to be able to reach out to me.
Excellent. You are an inspiring dude, man. Like, honestly, like, I love doing this show because of the different amounts of people I get to talk to, and this has been one of my favorite conversations for sure, because it's
awesome.
Your outlook on life is infectious, and I know we're going to end in a second here, and I'm going to get off, and I'm going to do 1,000 more things today because I feel inspired just from talking to you about it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I'm hopefully going to do more things too, and not just go be like, I did my podcast. I'm going to go sit down and eat some Cheerios.
Well, once again, I can't thank you enough for being on the show, and we will definitely, I know for a fact, our paths will cross again, and we'll definitely be talking soon.
Totally.
Awesome.
Thank you.
This has been Fueled by Deathcast, a Death Wish Coffee Company podcast production. Thanks for listening.